Alright, what's up guys? Brian here, and this is my GFW Impact review for last night's episode. So let's get right into it. Before I get started, a couple of news bits. As far as wrestling news, I believe it was either yesterday or the day before, we found out that Low Ki is no longer a part of GFW. Um, Apparently, the reason he left was because he had bigger plans, wanting to be as far as a main event, player. He's been the X Division champion, tag team champion. He wants to be in that main event picture, but apparently GFW have had other plans for him when he signed, so he's no longer there, no longer a part of GFW, which is a real shame, because I thought he could have been, a part of that, main event picture. But so another bit of news for anyone that watches NXT, that does not want to have any spoilers or hear any spoilers from yesterday's TV tapings. I would suggest skip it ahead in this video. But Asuka relinquished the NXT Women's title at yesterday's NXT tapings, um, and she is no longer the NXT Women's Champion. Uh, Storyline purpose for that is that she'll be moving up to the main roster. However, her main roster debut may be, uh, you know, many weeks off because during her match against Ember Moon, where she defended that NXT Women's title at NXT Takeover Brooklyn last Saturday, she suffered a right collarbone injury, is from what I read. So she's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Uh, whenever she's 100%, I don't know where she'll be put, if she's going to be, if she's going to be put on Raw or SmackDown. As far as getting hauled up to the main roster, hopefully they don't screw her up as far as coming from NXT to the main roster. Hopefully they do a good job with her. So, but that's about it. Um, as far as news bits, let's get right into the review of last night's episode of GFW Impact. There were two matches overall on that for the gold. Uh, it was for that GFW Global Championship. The other was the opening match. It was a tag team match involving OVE taking on the Heat Seekers. The Heat Seekers and OVE picked up the win in that tag team match on last night. I really am. I'm trying to, hopefully, I'm still, able to do this video. But yeah, the OVE Ohio versus Everything, they picked up the win over the Heat Seekers. They had a lot of segments, backstage segments, in-ring segments, stuff like that. They had one involving Jim Cornette and Lashley and America's Top Team, basically wanting to know what the heck, about last week, where America's Top Team attacked referee Brian Hebner after the Lashley Seidel match. Um, Cornette had a segment with Eddie Edwards. He had one with Eli Drake and Chris Adonis, where he made Eli Drake number 2 in the Gauntlet for the Gold. There was an in-ring segment where Laurel Van Ness, looking a lot better than she was a few weeks ago, uh, completely transformed to seemed like a different person. She came out and proposed to Grado, who was saying his farewell to the USA. Uh, there was some other ones. There was a Taryn Terrell who made her return last week, where she cost Gail Kim the. She was confronted by Gail Kim after pushing Gail's buttons, as far as saying, that Gail's going to cheat on her husband Robert and stuff like that. Basically, that was pretty much it. I mean, this is building. This has been building, like I said, since last week. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. A lot of these different storylines they have going on. The whole Grado staying in the USA, not being deported, not wanting to be deported, I should say. Storyline with him, now being proposed to by Laurel Van Ness. That's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And now getting to the main event, because there were some other segments, but there was really nothing else exciting about the Gauntlet for the Gold. Um, Eli Drake, as I mentioned, was number 2. Eddie Edwards came in at number 1. Those two started it off, and they were the final two men in the ring. They fought it out. We saw the debut of Johnny Impact. He came in at number 13. One of the most, I think, probably going to lead to something was Moose eliminating Lashley from the Gauntlet for the Gold. You had a lot of different things going on in this gauntlet, but Eli Drake and Eddie Edwards were the big story of it. They were the first two men in, and they were the final two men in the ring. They battled it out, and it was a good back and forth. But Eli Drake, with the air raid crash to Eddie Edwards, scored him the victory, and we have a new GFW Global Champion, and his name is Eli Drake. So big congratulations go to Eli Drake on finally becoming a world champion in GFW. I'm a big fan of Eli Drake. I think he's very good in the ring. I also think he's very good on the mic. So now we'll see how they book him as being world champion. Who's going to be next? Who's going to be the first one to step up to face him and challenge him for that championship? We'll have to wait and see. But like I said, a big congratulations to Eli Drake on becoming the new GFW Global Champion. Afterwards, once again, as we saw last week, one of the members of the America's Top Team would grab the referee again, start choking him. Lashley would come down to, or Lashley would try to play, keep a cool head and calm everybody down. You had officials coming down. You had Scott D'Amore coming down. And I believe it was Dan Lambert pushed Scott D'Amore down. So obviously they're going to build up to something with these guys, with America's Top Team and Lashley down the line. Because, I mean, 2 weeks in a row, these, America's Top Team have, they've grabbed referees. They've grabbed, 2 referees, one each week, and then now they're pushing down officials. So and then of course, when they had that meeting with Cornette earlier in the show, Dan Lambert basically told Lashley he has a choice to make. That Lashley's given up a lot for MMA to wrestle here, and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week, and what's going to happen with America's Top Team and Lashley and that whole situation. But overall, my thoughts on last night's episode. I thought it was a pretty good episode. The first hour was okay. The second hour I thought was pretty good. I thought that they did a lot more. They only had 2 matches within the 2-hour period, but they took most of that time as far as having segments and stuff. But I'm kind of glad that they gave the Gauntlet for the Gold a little bit more time as far as wrestling wise and entrance wise. So that was pretty good to see. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good show last night. If you guys watched Impact last night, let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments below. Uh, like I said, my overall I thought it was a pretty good show. Uh, I'm glad that they put the belt on Eli Drake. Now let's just see how they book him as champion over the next coming weeks. So with that being said, this has been my recap of what took place on last night's GFW Impact Wrestling on Pop TV. As always, I am Brian, and thank you for watching.